to go.
Hey Bucs fans, we're here with our 6th episode podcast for the Buc Bros podcast. We're here, got a little bit of a different format. This is going to be our triple option since we're all here in Texas this week. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go over some reactions from week 3. We're going to get into the quarterback controversy a little bit, and then we're going to get into our expectations going into Game 4 against the Bears. And obviously the biggest thing right now is the first loss of the season, coming off a 27-30 loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers on Monday night. Definitely the tale of two halves. We saw a really rough performance from Ryan Fitzpatrick in the first half, and then an absolute turnaround from both the defense and the offense in the second half. We saw good things and bad things. We saw a lot of drops from receivers. Chris Godwin with 2 drops in the end zone. We saw O.J. Howard with a big drop. We also saw Chris Conte get absolutely murdered on a major touchdown run by tight ends. And so, you know, guys, what did you think? What were some of the good things you saw? What were some of the bad things that you saw coming out of this game against Pittsburgh?
I think one of the good things we all saw was just the way we came out in the second half. Down 20, not a whole lot of good offensive momentum, having those 4 turnovers in the second quarter where we got outpaced 24-0. But the team had a lot of resiliency. We came out, we scored 17 unanswered, and we were so close to actually coming back in it. We actually had the opportunity when the defense stopped them with 2.5 minutes left. So I would say for me it's the resiliency of the team, never quit mentality. I'd like to see that going forward. I think it set a good precedence. Even though we lost, we kind of learned about the character of the team. How about you?
From a good perspective, I think the best thing that I saw is just the continued firepower of this offense. Another 400-yard performance from Fitzmagic. Even when we thought of the first half that the Magic may have died, that was not the case. This is probably the best offense I've ever seen a Buccaneers team put on the field.
True that.
There's a lot of weapons. There's a lot of places to go. Yeah, we don't have our run game quite down yet. I'm hoping that finally our second-round pick, Ronald Jones, could become effective. He's probably the most talented running back we have on the roster. He just needs to get into that playbook and understand Cutter's offense a little bit better. But, you know, I don't think you can really say, I mean, again, we put up 400-plus yards for the 3rd straight game against a really good team. And I only look forward to seeing what we can do, what kind of records we can set here in Tampa this season. So that's the best thing I liked again about this game.
Best thing that I saw definitely was the defense in the second half. You had rookies come in. Obviously, Chris Conte left with an injury, so you had Jordan Whitehead come in and replace him. Carlton Davis, who I talked about last week on the podcast, who I think is going to really shine for this team, just locked down Antonio Brown in the second half. No catches. We held him scoreless in the second half. That was something that was big for us. That was something we needed to be able to do to help engineer that comeback. And that, to me, was big. Watching our young secondary really come into their own. It's been a baptism by fire for a lot of these young kids, and it's been fun to watch. Fun to watch kids really come into their own and play the game this well.
Yeah, 0 points to the second half, so credit to the defense for keeping us in it when we really didn't have a lot of...
Asked about things that we didn't like seeing in the game. Obviously, the second quarter was about as bad as it gets for Buccaneer football. 4 turnovers, drop passes, bad interceptions, terrible route running. Defense didn't really pick it up. But that happens in football. I think the more discouraging thing that I'm seeing of our team right now is a lack of consistent pass rush. Mm-hmm. Yes, we're getting to the quarterback, but it seems to not be at the most effective times, and it seems to be not very consistent. Or when we absolutely need to get to the quarterback. I mean, the biggest play I can really think of, or a prime example, would be that 2nd down and 11, where we had Roethlisberger in the pocket. McCoy had him in his sights, and we let him scramble around and find Juju Schuster-Smith for the first down that basically sealed the game. We got to make those plays.
Right.
And we got to get more pressure. The more consistent pressure we can get, the more we can help our young secondary become even better. So that's probably the thing that I'm looking forward to the most, is seeing that progression of our defensive line to become a more effective pass rush. But yes, it's still, again, discouraging to see that we invested heavily in this unit this offseason. We're getting some results, but not the results we were hoping for.
I would think to that point, too, I saw a lot of blitz packages that we brought with Mike Smith's defense, and for some reason, and credit to the Pittsburgh O-line because they did a fantastic job of picking it up, but as a defense, while you can, allow some of that to be picked up, at some point a blitz has got to generate pressure. And to me, I saw 7 men come in, trying to get in Roethlisberger's face, and it just didn't faze him at all. And so I would worry about that as well, as just in generating that constant pressure. If we bring a blitz package, I'd like to see it have a little bit more effect. In this game, to me, it just didn't have any effect at all. Roethlisberger was able to pick apart our cornerbacks who were left stranded on an island with the talented wide receiver core of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I would hope to see more from the blitz packages going into next week and throughout the season. Just help our defensive line generate a little bit more pressure. I think we got 2 great linebackers in actually doing that with Levante David and Quan Alexander. We just need to be able to get them a little bit more space, get them a little bit easier lanes to run through, get to the quarterback.
To that point about getting pressure on the quarterback, we do have somebody coming back this week in Vita Vea, who was our first-round pick, obviously injured in the preseason. Didn't get to practice at all, didn't get to play any preseason games, hasn't played yet, but from what we've seen of him in college, should be an absolute asset to this defensive line. We're going to line him up next to Gerald McCoy. He's a big guy, he's a fast guy, and he should be able to help bring a little bit of that pressure and put it together for us. And that's what we need. We need a spark on the defensive line. We've got great veterans. We've got guys who know what they're doing. But what we need is someone to light that fire, to really bring it home and start getting after the quarterback. Start disrupting these plays a little bit, and then that's only going to make the secondary better.
I think
a great defensive line is going to make the secondary look infinitely better.
And I think Vita Vea would be huge just to clog up the middle of the line, to just add a little bit more pressure to the center of the line, force a double team, get the edges and the ends on our defensive scheme a little bit more space as well. I think that's what he'll be used for even more, is just giving our edge rushers a little bit more space so they can do what they need to do.
And this guy was drafted in the first round for a reason, guys.
Yeah.
He's a very talented defensive tackle. Really strong at the point of attack. Very fast, can get upfield quickly. He's not going to be asked to do that, right? Because McCoy's playing really a 3 technique in our defense. He's going to be asked to be the nose tackle for the most part, clog up the middle, take up the blockers, help our ends get free on one-on-one situations. But I think he's talented enough to do that. Now, we have no tape on him. It might be a good or bad thing from this game coming up of him at the NFL level. But that being said, we'll see how he comes back from a calf injury. Is he going to be effective? Will he not be effective? I don't see him playing a lot of snaps, but I see him being in there, especially on running downs, to help our defense be able to clog up the middle, to free our linebackers, to do things that he was brought here to do. And then eventually he's going to move into that role where he can really be an effective defensive tackle and hopefully a star defensive tackle going forward.
And the reports now are that he is going to play Game 4. Dirk Cutter said so. He expects Vita Vea to be on the field for that. And also, another person coming back in Week 4, Jameis Winston, the supposed franchise quarterback, as he put himself.
Right.
So let's get into that a little bit. Jameis Winston comes back. How do you guys feel the dynamic shift? Does it shift? Does Jameis start? I don't know if Dirk has said it outright yet, but he has kind of held it close to the chest. Who's going to start? Who's not going to start? I think he said Jameis Winston wasn't game speed ready. So what do you guys think about him coming back? What's it going to do to the team chemistry? What's it going to do to kind of the Bucs overall?
We've seen a historic NFL performance from Ryan Fitzpatrick through the first 3 weeks. Even just being 2-1, he's got 3 consecutive games of 400 yards, 4 touchdowns in each of the first 2 games, 3 touchdowns in this last game. He's put us in the best position to win, and I don't think for any reason, especially coming off of a short week, that you start Jameis Winston this week. Have the conversation after the bye week, reevaluate, see how this game goes against the Bears. But Ryan Fitzpatrick has absolutely earned the right to start this game this week. That's my opinion. I just don't think Jameis Winston is going to be able to come back. He wasn't even allowed into the facility until Tuesday morning. He hasn't been able to talk to coaches, hasn't been able to talk to his players. There's no way that he's going to be ready on a short week to go into Chicago on an away game and be ready to play up to speed.
Yeah, and I would agree with you. And I think we heard from Cutter, like you had mentioned, that he's not game ready. It's really hard to come. Anybody who's been out of the game for 3 weeks, I don't care who you are, you're just not going to be ready to, especially on a short week, to simulate game time decisions, game time throws, game time, speed, right? So yeah, I would agree that, and especially what your point was with Fitzmagic earning the right to start.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely, no question about it. He had 1 bad quarter. Out of the 12 he's played, 11 of those have been elite. And so, at that point in time, it's not really a decision. I think the bigger question going forward is who starts after the bye week? Who starts week 6?
And I think that's a decision you have to make based on what we see in this game in Chicago.
Absolutely.
But at this point, for me personally, I've seen more out of Ryan Fitzpatrick than I've ever seen out of Jameis Winston. And we've spent the last several years building an offense around Jameis Winston, giving him the weapons he needs to be successful at this level, and we haven't seen it. And with Ryan Fitzpatrick this season, and we saw it in 2 games last season, but we're really seeing it now, we've seen Deshaun Jackson, who we went out in free agency and spent a belligerent amount of money on, be the weapon that we paid him to come here to be. Jameis Winston did not hit Deshaun Jackson on a single deep route for an entire season. In 13 games, not one time hit him over the top. We brought him in to take the top off of defenses, and he's doing it. O.J. Howard, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, and Deshaun Jackson are all on pace for 1,000-yard seasons.
Just a side note, Mike Evans and Deshaun Jackson are the first pair of receivers in NFL history to have over 300 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns in their first 3 games on the same team. Yeah. So obviously something's going right with Fitzmagic leading the troops.
And I think John's right here. We did kind of build the offense around the franchise quarterback. We gave him all the weapons you could ask for with a Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Deshaun Jackson, everything you could hope for.
Even on the line, we gave him weapons. We went out and got Ali Marpet.
We got Donovan Smith. We could get Ryan Jensen.
I mean, if you think about it, our first 2 drafts with Jason Light and really Cutter being part of the team. In 2014, he was our offensive coordinator, and then he switched into that role in 2016, right? Yeah. So regardless, the first 2 drafts under the Jason Light regime, in 2014 and 2015, we took all offensive players, right? Yes, James was drafted in 2015, but we have given this guy everything he needs to succeed on the offensive side of the ball. And you guys are right. Like, we're just not seeing the results through the first 3 years of his professional career.
And I think what's going on here is that if you look at our offense, right, the offense is stacked, and we can, and Chris Godwin said it himself, we can run the table on people. I don't think there's a secondary in the league, even the Rams, that can fully cover our offensive weapons at receiver, right? So what do I think when I see this? When I see all this talent, when I see we can drive it at will, the only thing that's stopping us is turnovers. And we saw it in the last game, right? Fitzpatrick throws 3 interceptions. We get a fumble, 4 turnovers in the second quarter alone. And obviously, we get blown out that quarter. And what we're seeing, I think, here is that while Fitzpatrick does have a bad game in him, just like we saw, for the most part, for the 2 out of 3, he's been only 1 interception that really wasn't his fault against Philly, and he's had no interceptions against the Saints.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we don't turn the ball over, our offense is unstoppable.
Our
It's
offense,
unstoppable.
in only one quarter. The first quarter of the game, Ryan Fitzpatrick marches down the field, hits Cameron Brate in the end zone for a touchdown. A guy who, I think that was that his first reception of the season?
It might have been. I think it was.
And so, and that was a weapon we didn't even name a moment ago. That's another guy we have on the field, and we've also got guys like Adam Humphries. We have the offensive weapons right now to have our way with most defenses in this league, and we're finally doing that. We had these same weapons last year. We have not added a single offensive weapon that is starting right now that did not start last season, and we didn't see these numbers.
And I think on your turnover point, right, turnovers are going to be inevitable in this game. It's the snowball effect that's really going to hurt us, right? If you have the turnover, maybe even 2 during the game, but they're spread out, we have an offense that's capable of putting up points if we just have successful drives maybe 75, 80% of the time. What we can't have happen is what happened this past game, where it snowballs into 4 turnovers in a quarter and the game gets out of reach. I would agree 100%. We got to take better care of the ball going forward.
Back to the point of Jameis versus Fitzpatrick, I think the only way that Fitzpatrick loses his starting job at this point, to me, is if he has that snowball effect. If he has games where he's getting 3 interceptions, or even maybe 2 interceptions, right? Where he's turning the ball over more than he's producing. That's the only way I can see Jameis supplanting him. But we know Jameis is prone to the same turnover ratio.
We watched it. We watched it on his very first pass. We were in the stands.
We were at the Tennessee game. We're all hyped up.
4 interceptions his first game.
Yeah, we're all hyped up. So Jameis' first start, pick 6.
I remember watching. He has the most fumbles of any quarterback in the league over the last 3 years. He's second in interceptions behind Blake Bortles. Yeah, the guy just cannot control the ball. The only real question, though, when it comes to a QB controversy or no QB controversy, is that this guy was brought in to be a franchise quarterback. We gotta, we're gonna have to ride the wave for Fitzmagic as long as that wave continues to flow.
Yes. Yeah.
But at some point, you got to see what kind of good, you got to look into the grocery bag and see what kind of goods you have.
We have
and either you toss the groceries, but the next year's at a $20 million rate.
But he's going to want more than that.
But he's not going to get more than the $20 million. But are we going to pay him $20 million? You're talking about Aaron Rodgers is getting paid like $21, $22 million a year right now. Is he Aaron Rodgers? No, not even close.
No. So if he's not Aaron Rodgers,
so at some point we got to see what's in the bag. We got to see what goods we got, and this is the year you got to do it because you can't do it next year. But that's and I would agree that it's a predicament that they're in, and I don't think any league or any team in the league would want to be in this situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely, you cannot. A guy who throws for 1,200 yards. 11 touchdowns and a rushing touchdown and through 3 games of the season. How do you bench that guy for anybody?
You don't.
I don't care if Aaron Rodgers was coming back from injury.
You don't. Yeah.
That guy is so hot right now. You don't sit him.
The biggest thing for me is he's not coming back from injury. Jameis Winston is coming back from a self-inflicted wound, and not a wound just to himself. He did this to his team.
Yeah.
There is a good chance that Ryan Fitzpatrick doesn't have record-breaking games. What was more realistic starting this season? Being 2-1 with 3 consecutive 400-yard games? Or were we really considering being 0-3, yanking Ryan Fitzpatrick out and shoving Jameis Winston back in on a short week to play against the Bears? That's what we were looking forward to. Jameis Winston lost this starting role of his own accord, of his own actions. He's not coming back from injury He didn't get sick. This is a guy who made a mistake, got himself suspended, and the guy who replaced him is outplaying him.
That's true.
And if he continues to outplay him, I think Jameis may have lost himself a starting job forever as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. It's just come to that point. You could say it happened 2 years ago, but you still did.
You did the actions, yeah.
You're paying the price, and exactly. It isn't because of some freak injury or something that was out of your control. It was absolutely.
It was your action that you had to pay. You had to pay the price for, right? And unfortunately for him, that those reprimands of him not starting 3 games has now forced the issue of, well, can we really use you as a starter? Because Ryan Fitzpatrick is, I think it's fair to say, outplaying you. He's just outplaying you.
He's outplaying everybody in the league right now. And he's the best quarterback, maybe this side of Patrick Mahomes, in the league right now. No. So there's no ifs or buts to me about this week.
Yeah.
It's just, what do we do going forward? It's a very, very tough decision.
No.
And I understand you have to have a franchise quarterback in the National Football League. I understand that you have to build a team around a quarterback. But at this point, with the weapons we have on offense, we really just need someone to be serviceable.
That's true.
The face of our offense is not Jameis Winston. The face of our offense is guys like Mike Evans, guys like O.J. Howard, Cameron Brate. These are guys who are the elite players in their positions. We've got guys like Chris Godwin who are lighting up the league that need to get playing time. These are guys that need to get wins under your belt.
Well, he'd be lighting up the league if, he didn't drop 3 passes and fumble another one.
It was a tough game.
Yeah,
it was a tough game.
But still, he's got a very bright future.
Yeah.
If you want to build a culture of winning, you got to win games.
Yeah.
You can't build a culture of winning from wanting to win. Want in one hand. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Putting wins together, being 3-1 going into the bye week, that's a culture of winning. Being first place in the division, the number 1 team in the NFC right now, that builds a culture of winning. And if Jameis Winston isn't the man to do that, then maybe he's not the man to do that.
Maybe. But let's talk about that point going into week 4. We're still 2-1. We want to be 3-1. I think the Panthers have a bye week. We're the only people who can reach us. So, with that said,
well, the Saints I think play, right? So,
yeah, but we would still have the tiebreaker over them.
Right, but anyway.
Yeah,
understood.
But in any case, what are some of the keys to the game you guys see? Obviously, the Bears have a vaunted defense. They just barely beat the Arizona Cardinals 16-14. They moved up to 2-1, and they are in sole possession of first place in the NFC North. So, what are some of the keys to the game? What are you going to be looking for? What are you going to be seeing?
Yeah.
What do we need to do well in order to win this game?
I think the biggest key of this game is how are we going to protect Fitzpatrick from the monster that is Khalil Mack.
He has been lighting it up.
Chicago has 14 sacks through 3 games on the season. That's
side note. I just learned that, and that is insane.
It's insane. It's monstrous, and it's all due to one player.
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
And you can double team this guy. You can triple team this guy. He finds a way to the quarterback. So that's the biggest key matchup. The key to this game is if we can limit, he's gonna get hits. Yeah. Okay, but if we can limit him to the amount of impactful plays that he's gonna have on the defensive side of the ball for the Bears, and we can get to we can hit some of those deep routes. We can really open the field up. Then that's really the big key because their offense just will not match up with our offense. We have much more better skilled players. We have a much more potent offense than the Chicago Bears do under Mitchell Trubisky. That's just a fact.
That's true.
The thing is Khalil Mack is a turnover machine guy. He creates havoc. Let's limit that havoc. And if we can, we have a very, very solid chance of winning this game here in Lambeau Field. If we can't, I fear that we'll see a repeat of what happened in the second quarter of the Pittsburgh game.
What I would like to see this week out of the Buccaneers is to establish the run game.
I was just going to say, what helps with the pass rush? A run game.
You want to take Khalil Mack out of the game, limit his ability, then I think it's time that we bring in our second-round pick, Ronald Jones, give him his first snaps behind the first team offensive line, because while he had a rough preseason, he never once started behind even our second-string offensive lineman. Not once. Not one snap. So put him behind Ali Marpet, put him behind Donovan Smith, let him run it down their throat, and then once they respect the run, let Fitzmagic do his thing. Beat them in the air.
But I think it's more pointed than that, because as we're going to have to double team and triple team Khalil Mack, we can't run every down, right? And what you don't want to have happen is you get kind of telegraphic running back plays. What we saw with like a Charles Sims and Doug Martin, where Doug Martin was in, you could telegraph the run. If Charles Sims was in, you're telegraphing that he's going to swing out and go to the pass, right? And what we don't want, what we've heard from camp and what we know is that Ronald Jones may not be the best at pass protection. And what we don't want to have happen is if Ronald Jones is in, they know it's a run. So I agree that we need to implement our second-round pick into the game at some point. He just needs to be very aware of his assignments, especially in this game with such a vaunted defense that has 14 sacks through 3 games. If we put him in there, he needs to know his assignments and he needs to know them well. Otherwise, we're going to be reamed.
I'm going to give you... I think that Ronald Jones' biggest impact is going to be catching balls out of the backfield. Because his biggest, most explosive plays in the preseason were catching the ball. He had 5 times as many yards catching the ball as running the ball in the preseason.
So I have a little bit of a different view on that. I think if you bring him in, you limit the playbook to him to a few select plays that he's going to be in there for.
Right.
I would think that 90% or maybe 85% of those plays are going to be running plays. In my mind, I've got this guy who can break it at any time, right? So really only one of those times that you line him up, and I don't care if they know you're running the ball. He gets a crease.
Yeah.
We get the blocks that we need to get, and he can, he's got that breakaway speed to where he can make what should be a 5-yard gain into a 50-yard gain, right? And that's what really is going to matter. Like, can we get that out of our running back that we drafted so high to do that purpose? So in my mind, it's, we might telegraph our hand, we might play our hand every time he's in the backfield, right?
Yeah.
But I want that kind of mindset too. It's like, I don't care if y'all know what we're doing. We're about to run it down your throat regardless.
That's true.
It's not as if people don't know Le'Veon Bell is going to get the ball or Adrian Peterson's going to get the ball. They know when he's lining up back there. They're not great pass blockers either. They're just having to be great running backs in addition. So the guy's got to run the ball eventually. He's not going to learn how to pass block in practice. He can't read a book and say, oh, well, I know I got to block this guy if he's coming in. The guy's got to see it. He's got to feel it, and he's got to see it at that game speed with the crowd being loud. He's got to get run over a couple of times to get a feel for what he needs to do. But eventually he's got to play. Much like our rookies in the secondary, they've got to play eventually.
And I think the biggest advantage we got this game is we don't have Chris Conti being stiff-armed into the grave this game, so we don't have to worry about that going forward.
But if we are going to make big plays, if we're going to have a big play running back, we need to avoid the mistakes of the past 2 games and not nullify those gains. We win the Pittsburgh Steelers game without 2 penalties.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, Adam Humphries has a 65-yard return, called back. Deshaun Jackson has a touchdown return, called back. Adam Humphries had a 65-yard return in the Saints game, called back.
I know.
These are mental mistakes that only happen to us on large running plays, and that's something that I see consistently. And I don't know how you coach that or how you coach that out of a player, but we got to figure that out immediately.
Yeah. I didn't think it's time for the defense to feast. I don't think the offense is very good for the Chicago Bears. Granted, I haven't seen a lot of them, but they don't seem to have the receivers that I would know of. They have Tariq Cohen and Jordan Howard, very good running backs. Tariq Cohen coming out of the backfield. But to me, a lot of it is going to be vaunted defense versus high prolific offense with Ryan Fitzpatrick passing for 400 yards a game. I want to see the other side of the ball. I want to see our defense step up. I want to see them lock down this, what I'll note as subpar offense. I know I may offend some Bears fans, but what I'll note as a subpar offense.
You're worried about offending Bears fans?
Well, I don't want to get into everybody's chops because people say our defense is subpar, and I get gypped about it.
But this is a team that we have seen a lot in the last few years. For whatever reason,
we always
whether it's that
we're playing the NFC North
over the last couple, or we're playing the NFC North. Yeah, we've seen this team. I think the last 4 or 5 seasons in a row.
Yeah, so.
I would agree with you. The difference in this one, obviously, is the opposing quarterback we're going up against, right? So we went up against the only team in NFL history to their first 3 games have gone up against Super Bowl winning quarterbacks. Drew Brees, Nick Foles, Ben Roethlisberger. Now you got a Mitchell Trubisky, second year in the league, doesn't have a whole lot of experience under his belt, and doesn't have anywhere close to the playmakers that the Buccaneers have on their side of the ball. So this should be a good test for the defense where we can actually see, we're not going to have to deal with a high-powered offense. We can get after the quarterback, and this quarterback's going to be prone to making more mistakes and not being able to make plays as a Drew Brees or Ben Roethlisberger.
I think we just need to feast this game. We need our defense to step up. Let's get 3-4 sacks would be awesome. Let's get an INT for God's sakes. We have 1 on the season, which was the first drive of the Pittsburgh game. So let's get after them.
Let's make a statement too, right?
Yeah.
The first 2 games were not just magic, as everyone has called it.
Yeah.
We're here for real.
Yeah.
This is a talented team, and I see it and I believe it. Let's go out there and make that statement.
So let's all get let's wrap it up. Give me a game prediction. Score of the Week 4 game against Chicago this Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern.
Tampa wins this game handedly on offense. I think we beat them 42-24.
42-24.
And I think we dominate, and I fully expect Ryan Fitzpatrick to play every down.
And your player of the game is?
Player of the game is going to be Carlton Davis with 2 picks.
Nice. You?
All right. I don't see it being as high scoring as you. I do think that Chicago's defense is for real and that they will be able to limit, not from a coverage standpoint, but they will be able to create some more turnovers from our side of the ball. That being said, I don't see too much firepower in a Chicago offense to keep up with. Inevitably, we're going to be able to get our points. So I see this as a Tampa Bay victory. I'm going to go 24-16. Tampa Bay comes out victorious. My player of the game is going to be Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Gotta go with the hot hand.
Go with the hot hand. I don't think he throws for another 400 yards, but I still think he keeps up the hot hand. He's got a couple touchdowns, probably somewhere close to 300 yards, and again, he'll be the difference in the game.
All right, I'm gonna go with a little bit closer to yours, but honestly, I think our defense is gonna step up. They're coming off of a 0-point second half against a really good Pittsburgh team, and I don't see Mitchell Trubisky and his offense kind of creating that same caliber of offense. So to me, I'm going to go 28-10. Bucs win. My player of the game is going to be JPP. He's going to have 2.5 sacks this game.
Good choice.
So for that, I think we're going to wrap up episode 6. We hope to all catch you guys this week. And yeah, let's go Bucs. Let's hear some cannon fire.
Yeah, you got anything to say, Jameis? You got anything to say? No.
Nope.
You don't want to start. You don't want to start game 4. Okay. All right, guys. We'll see you next episode.